So before we get started with the impressions, I just want to say thank you everyone for your patience as I was trying to get this video out a little bit earlier than I ended up doing. At this point, the game is about a week and a half old, but I still wanted to give my impressions on what I truly believe is one of the best games to release this year. So A Plague Tale Requiem is the sequel to A Plague Tale Innocence, which I believe released in 2019. I actually played the game back when it came out on PC, and not a lot of people were really talking about that release. It was kind of like a smaller budget title. It didn't really have a lot of marketing behind it, and I think a lot of people sort of discovered the game when it was re-released for the PS5 and Xbox Series X a few years later. But I walked away after playing A Plague Tale Innocence, pretty happy with what I experienced. I thought it was a great game. Loved the storytelling, loved the visual art direction and just the style. And the gameplay was stealth focused, which I very much like, but it made sense within the confines of the characters that you were playing as. Needless to say, I was very excited for A Plague Tale Requiem. I wanted to see what the developers could do targeting the current gen only systems. And I have to say that after playing 15 hours of A Plague Tale Requiem at this point, I still haven't completed the game. Holy shit. This game is incredible. I'm not kidding. As someone who really enjoyed the first game and was really excited for this sequel, the developers have exceeded my expectations for almost all aspect of the game's design. I am in complete shock playing this game at just how well polished and crafted it is. It truly speaks to the developers just how talented they actually are. And I'm sure that this sequel, had a much larger team behind it. The original game sort of had a smaller team within the studio of Asobo, and they developed their own engine for the initial game. So I am just completely blown away by the entire experience so far with A Plague Tale Requiem. If you are a fan of storytelling games and single-player focused games, this game is made for you. It's phenomenal. So let's talk about all the different elements of why that is the case. For one, the storytelling in this sequel is so much more darker, it's much more mature, and deals with, I think, more complex themes than the original game ever did. You're still playing as Amicia, the bigger sister of Hugo, who's the other main character. And, she's dealing with this internal conflict, which I really very much enjoy, where in the first game, she basically had to grow up super fast and do what she needed to do in order to survive after being chased and hunted by the Inquisition of the first game, who was after her younger brother for secret abilities and stuff that he possessed within his blood. And in this game, they just ramp everything up to 11. It's much more violent. Amicia seems to be losing herself at times as she kind of gets involved in some of these battles. There's this chaos and turmoil happening within herself that I just find so fascinating and really speaks to the wonderful writing and drama that's injected into this story. If you're looking for a mature narrative with great characters and very complex themes, this is definitely going to give you that. It's got a number of great sections, everything from set pieces to, actual drama that's unfolding with the characters at hand. And it's just a narrative that I absolutely adore and love seeing on screen. It's just a wonderful and horrific story as well. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times that my jaw dropped watching some of the events unfold. It's quite shocking at moments, but has moments of pure bliss and beauty along with it. And it's just this roller coaster of many emotions, many mixed emotions as you're playing this game. It's awesome. It's phenomenal. I don't want to speak too much on the story because this is one where you should truly experience it yourself. If you haven't played the first game, it's super cheap at this point and you can get it on the current generation of systems, and I recommend that you play that game because this sequel is a direct continuation of that storyline, and there's many references throughout the original game throughout this adventure as well. So if you haven't played A Plague Tale Innocence and you like what you're seeing on screen here for Requiem, definitely give the first game a shot. It's a lot shorter than this one. They just seem to go all out for this sequel here, and we're going to talk about that right now. So the storytelling's fantastic. What about the actual presentation, what you're seeing on screen here? This is a current generation only release. This is only on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and of course high-end PCs. So they are leveraging all the latest technology, and in fact ray tracing, which is going to be coming to PC exclusively later on, it's not part of the console experience here, but wow, these graphics are phenomenal. The graphics on display, at least on console, are so wonderfully detailed. I mean, you're looking at some truly mind-blowing visuals that I think catch your eye immediately, and this is brought to you by having some extremely exotic locations in the game. You're going to be traveling through the Mediterranean Sea and going to all these places around Europe and whatnot, and so just the colors alone, and this game in HDR, by the way, is truly reference quality. Highlights are blindingly bright. You know, all these different elements like fire and stuff, when the flames get up in your screen, it's going to push the peak brightness of your HDR TV. And then you have these wonderful silky shadows that encompass you like an all-around darkness. If you have an OLED TV, you're gonna love the way that this game looks on that display. From a technical aspect, I mean, what you're seeing here is just a mind-blowing amount of detail, and you have to respect as well that this isn't even an exclusive title. This is a third-party game. The developers have again made their own engine for this, so the fact that you're getting this level of detail on a multi-platform release is truly astonishing. You also have a great sound mix as well. The game supports a full Dolby Atmos mix, so if you have a setup that can take advantage of that, that's gonna really help further the atmosphere in this game. It's just a fantastic representation of a developer utilizing current generation hardware at its best to really deliver truly astonishing and lifelike environments, and then bringing it all to life, just taking advantage of all this great technology such as HDR and Atmos. It is a fantastic reference quality game that, you know, you can definitely showcase to anyone who's kind of scoffs at the current generation systems as a great selling point from a visual aesthetic. It's truly a beautiful looking game, and the environments just help you appreciate this even further with, again, a great selection of exotic locations. Now, as you're probably aware, there was some controversy surrounding this game's performance. It is a 30 frames per second experience for the most part on console. You do have a 40 frames per second mode if you output to 120 Hertz. Now, my TV is a 4K 60 Hertz display, or I can go down to 1440p 120 Hertz if I want to do that, so I have an HDMI 2.0 TV. Unfortunately, the Xbox also disables HDR when you're not displaying in the 4K output. So honestly, because the HDR experience in this game is reference quality, like I was saying, truly blown away, and it makes the visuals even more impactful, even better than they already are without it. I decided instead to opt for the 4K 30 mode, and have been enjoying the game just fine with that frame rate. There's been a handful of titles from this generation that I've actually opted to play in quality mode over their performance mode. So, you know, I'm very much used to still playing games at this frame rate. And honestly, with the Xbox Series X, I have not seen a single dip below the 30 frames per second refresh rate. So for me, a big thing is consistency. I don't care very much what you're targeting in terms of your frame rate, but I want a consistent, smooth experience. When things start dipping and we start getting frame time spikes and all this stuff, that's when things can, you know, be a lot more disruptive than they actually are. Now, on Series X at least, this game performs wonderful at 4K 30. There's no frame rate dips under that number. It's basically perfectly smooth no matter what you're doing. And even when the set pieces ramp up and there's lots of action and rats on display, I didn't really notice any frame rate dips whatsoever. So that being said, you know, even though it is a 30 Hertz refresh, you are getting a pretty consistent 30 Hertz refresh, you know, at least on the Series X here. I know that the other consoles have some issues outputting at that frame rate. That being said, I have played more responsive 30 FPS games, so by no means is it the best feeling 30 FPS experience I've played, but it's fine. You know, it didn't really hinder my experience that much. You know, the game is still perfectly playable. It's very smooth at that number, so everything's really consistent. And I've still been able to really enjoy the game and everything that it has to offer with that. Now, on the gameplay front here, the developers have added a few extra tools that Amicia has at her disposal to make this game just a little bit more deep than the initial game really was. You do have a number of new potions and, you know, alchemic concoctions that you can actually create. This can help you solve puzzles, and you have different tools and stuff to deal with the rats at hand. New to this game is you also have a crossbow now that you get later on in the experience, so you can effectively play this game like a third-person shooter almost, taking behind cover and then shooting crossbows at enemies. And then you have upgrades later on that Amicia can get where she can actually reuse crossbow bolts that she's hit enemies with, effectively giving you infinite ammo if you can get to the body quick enough. And overall, they basically refine the controls and just the different features that are available. So, this is a stealth game first and foremost. You have to be interested in stealth. Amicia is not a warrior. She's not a fighter. That being said, there are plenty of moments throughout the game where, she kind of goes head on and you are forced to enter combat in numerous sections. And the game sort of challenges you to dispatch those enemies as quickly as possible. But on the whole, what you're going to be doing is sneaking around enemies, causing distractions. You might be taking out certain enemies as they're blocking your path. But this game isn't really focused on going head first in terms of combat. It wants you to engage in stealth and really think carefully on how to approach each different enemy encounter. More so like a puzzle. Your only goal is to get through them. It's not really to take care of them. And so, there are a lot of sections in the game where you can actively just skip large combat sections if you're, sneaky enough trying to get around enemies. I feel the gameplay is perfectly fine. Again, if you like the first game, this is just a continuation of those gameplay beats, perhaps more refined with better controls and just more tools that Amicia has at her disposal. What they've really done with the gameplay, though, is that they've put you in these levels that are just so large, so vast. I mean, some of these levels could be considered like open world hubs in of itself. I mean, they're pretty substantial in terms of their size, and you'll be spending hours at times trying to explore every nook and cranny of these environments. It definitely adds to the overall length of the gameplay. And it's not all padding on top of that either. You'll actually find collectibles that have meaning. There are a number of hidden locations in the game where you can actually find bits of different armor pieces that can actually help affect your abilities in terms of combat or what Amicia can do in stealth situations as well. So to summarize here, A Plague Tale Requiem is probably the best game to release this year behind Elden Ring. In fact, if Elden Ring didn't release this year, this would probably be the best game that is out in 2022 right now. Everything from a narrative perspective, the graphics are phenomenal, great sound, great voice acting, and then the gameplay gives you options in how to approach different combat encounters. It's about strategic combat and guerrilla warfare tactics. And it's just awesome all around. So if you haven't played the first game, I would recommend starting there because it is a shorter experience, but it's also going to introduce you to the world and the characters. And this sequel is a direct continuation of where that last game left off. But if you have played that game and you're wondering how this sequel fares, definitely don't miss this. It's a pulse-pounding adventure. There's twists in the narrative. There's great characters that you'll meet. There's large environments to explore. The gameplay is much more varied this time around. And it's a visual and audible next-generation showpiece. It's just a masterpiece all around that truly deserves to be up there with some of the best games that released this year, honestly. So, those are my thoughts and feelings on A Plague Tale Requiem. I'm still playing the game and I should have it completed in the next day or two, but I'm just really happy for the developers that they've managed to, land on all the expectations, at least that I had, and I can't imagine anyone would be unhappy with this experience. I mean, pretty much every aspect from the game's design has been improved in some way. And, so many variety in terms of your locations, larger levels. This is a game that's going to last you a good amount of time, and it's going to keep you interested the whole way through it. Guys, if you played the game, let me know what you think. If you haven't, I highly encourage that you give it a shot. And until then, I'll see you guys for the next one. Thank you very much.